What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel, and we have moved on to a new position, the running back position, and I'm going to go in the same order of conferences and groups that I did for the quarterback position. So today, I'm going to be giving you my top 10 running backs in the ACC conference for the 2020 college football season. Of course, the ACC is highlighted by the guys I shared in the list yesterday, but there are, I think, a lot of other underrated and overlooked running backs in the ACC. Lots of backups, especially, that could start for most of the teams in the conference. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Number 10 for me in the ACC, it was a really hard decision to come down to, but I feel like the number 10 running back in the ACC this year is going to be Kenneth Walker of Wake Forest. Now, his stats last year aren't that impressive. Only 98 touches with 574 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. Tack on 3 catches with 17 receiving yards as well. But he was splitting time with a lot of other running backs, and most guys are leaving. So he is going to be the full-time starter over there at Wake Forest. And now, of course, with Jamie Newman in that passing attack leaving. Sam Hartman is still back there passing. But I think they're going to have to rely on Kenneth Walker over there at Wake Forest a little bit more than they normally would have if Jamie Newman were there. But, of course, Jamie Newman is not there. Jamie Newman is at Georgia. So Sam Hartman is back there. And I think they've got some questions on him, whether or not he can come back and play healthy as he was. So I think Kenneth Walker is going to get quite a bit of the load over there at Wake Forest. I love watching this young man play. He was really impressive to me last year for the minimal time that he got to play, and I think he's going to end up being the starter over there at Wake Forest, and I think he's going to have a breakout year in 2020. We're going to head and move on to number 9, and that's going to be Lyn-J Dixon of Clemson University. So it was going to be Lyn-J Dixon's backfield, but Travis Etienne decided that he was going to come back. So Lyn-J Dixon is going to be the backup for Clemson, but he is still very, very good. Could start for most of the teams in the ACC. Look at what he did last year, 104 rushing attempts with 635 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns as well, along with 14 catches out of the backfield with 121 receiving yards. Now, of course, he's still going to have similar stats last year, but with his running ability, I think he could get some more yards. He's got a year under his belt. He definitely has a lot of potential that I don't think we've seen Lyn-J Dixon have, and definitely in 2021, it is going to be his backfield when Travis Etienne goes to the NFL. But this year, it is Travis Etienne's backfield, and Lyn-J Dixon is playing backup, but I think he'll play more than a lot of people think he's going to play. He's just that talented of a runner, and as I said, he can start for pretty much any team in the ACC. Lyn-J Dixon is just that good of a runner. He's not higher on this list because he is going to be the backup for Clemson this year. But I still really like this young man in Lyn-J Dixon. I think he's going to have a pretty darn good 2020, especially as a backup to Travis Etienne. We're going to move on to number 8 here, and it's another backup running back. That's Javonte Williams of North Carolina. We're going to look at what he did last year. He was splitting time with another running back you're going to see later in this list, but he was splitting time with him. So we'll look at what he did last year. 166 rushing attempts with 933 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns as well. Tack on to that, he could catch balls out of the backfield as well. 17 catches for 176 receiving yards. Tack on a receiving touchdown as well. He had a pretty darn good game against Clemson, if I do recall correctly. And again, while he was splitting time, he still is the secondary guy behind the starter over there at North Carolina. Again, as I will talk about, who I will talk about later in this list. But Javonte Williams is still a very, very, very good runner. He could also start for a lot of teams in the ACC as well. And I think he's just going to get a little bit more touches than Lyn-J Dixon is. That's why he's ahead of Lyn-J Dixon. And it showed last year he got pretty much half the touches last year compared to the other running back. And by that I mean he got a lot of the load off and had really impressive numbers. I mean, basically 1,000 yards and what is almost 165 rushing attempts. That's really, really good. I think Javonte Williams can only improve in 2020, and I think North Carolina definitely has potential to have 2 1,000-yard rushers back there in the backfield. And the first one of those is Javonte Williams, and he is at number 8. We're going to move on to number 7. That's going to be David Bailey of Boston College. Now, of course, he was the backup to A.J. Dillon, but A.J. Dillon is now a member of the Green Bay Packers in the NFL, so it is David Bailey's backfield. We look at what he did last year as a backup, mind you, 148 rushing attempts with 844 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. That's some really impressive stats considering who he was the backup to in A.J. Dillon, who was an impressive running back in and of himself. 10 receptions out of the backfield with 94 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown as well for David Bailey. But it is his running ability that really does set him apart. He has the physique of A.J. Dillon. He has the running ability of A.J. Dillon. While I don't think he has the speed of A.J. Dillon, he is definitely a powerful back, and I think can only expand on what he did in 2020. But I think with David Bailey, it is just far and away the most true thing you can say about David Bailey. As a backup, he played absolutely incredible. Now as a starter over there at Boston College, I expect him to have an absolutely wonderful 2020 season. We're going to move on to number 6. That's going to be Zonovan Knight of North Carolina State. So North Carolina State is a team that is only trending downward, but Zonovan Knight is a really, really good runner, splitting time with a lot of running backs there as well. But I do think Zonovan Knight is going to be the full-time starter and definitely has potential to rush for 8,000 yards. We'll look at his 2019 stats: 136 rushing attempts, 745 rushing yards with 5 rushing touchdowns, tack on 7 catches and 45 receiving yards as well. But Zonovan Knight, I think, is a runner that we just haven't seen up to his fullest yet. I definitely think he's going to be able to get there in 2020, now being, in what my opinion is going to be the full-time starter over there at NC State. Now, they do have other great running backs, but I do think Zonovan Knight is far and away the best running back there on the NC State roster. You can disagree with me if you want, but I really like watching this kid. He is just absolutely a phenomenal runner. I just can't say enough great things about Zonovan Knight. He is just, I mean, every time he touches the football, he's going for a touchdown. I mean, that is clear in his stats. He's averaging, I think, about 5 or 6 yards a carry, which is pretty darn good for a guy who didn't get that much playing time last year. So Zonovan Knight, I expect to have an even better 2020 and just only improve on his game this year. We're going to go ahead and move on to number 5. That's going to be Cameron Harris of Miami University. And while he was playing backup to a lot of guys, and Miami's running back position has kind of been a question the past couple of years, I think this year it definitely is Cameron Harris's backfield to lose. 114 rushing attempts with 576 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns last year for Cameron Harris. So not that great of stats, but do keep in mind he was splitting time with a lot of guys. 16 catches, 118 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown to tack along with those stats as well. Cameron Harris is a guy who, just like many guys I talk about, as a full-time starter, those stats are definitely going to go up, but he is such a good runner, and a lot of people think he has the potential to be a top 10 running back in the entire nation. Now, I don't know if I would go that far quite yet, but Cameron Harris definitely does have the potential to play really, really well for this Miami team that's getting D'Eriq King there. I just don't know how much he's going to run the football, especially with D'Eriq King being the dual threat quarterback that he is. But I do think he's going to get more touches than he has in years past, and I think he's just going to be a very explosive runner in 2020. We're going to move on to number 4. That's going to be Jordan Mason of Georgia Tech, and I think a lot of people forget about Jordan Mason. I myself included forgot about Jordan Mason this year, but when I was making this list, I rediscovered Jordan Mason, watched a lot of tape on him, and man, can this kid run. Look at what he did last year: 174 rushing attempts with 899 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns, 7 receptions with 43 receiving yards to tack along with that as well. But is as true as a runner as you can possibly get. He's got some great speed. He's really shifty. Now, Georgia Tech wasn't the best team last year. Clearly, they were actually one of the bottom teams in the entirety of the FBS. But Georgia Tech is getting better. They are returning a lot of guys on both sides of the ball. And I think are only going to improve this year. I think if you remember correctly, I had them at number 9, number 10 or number 9 in my ACC power ranking video that I did a while back. And a big part of that is because they are returning Jordan Mason. And again, just some absolutely incredible stats, almost 900 yards last year with only about 175 carries. So Jordan Mason really does make every single run count, and I think he definitely has potential to be a 1,000-yard rusher this year for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. We're going to move on to number 3, and it was the North Carolina running back I was talking about earlier, the starter for North Carolina, and Michael Carter. Again, keep in mind he was splitting with Javonte Williams, but I expect Michael Carter to get more of the load this year than Javonte Williams. Look at his stats in 2019, 177 rushing yards with 177 carries with 1,003 rushing yards, only 3 rushing touchdowns. So Javonte Williams did have more touchdowns than Michael Carter, but Michael Carter is much more of an explosive runner than Javonte Williams. He can also catch balls out of the backfield, can Michael Carter. 21 catches for 154 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns for Michael Carter. The duo in the North Carolina back is absolutely crazy this year, both top 10 in the ACC, in my opinion. In the North Carolina team, that's also getting Sam Howell back and pretty much getting their entire offensive line back, which is going to be big, not only for Sam Howell, but for these North Carolina running backs. They're going to be able to run all over their opponents with the offensive line being able to create some holes. And Michael Carter is great at finding the seams and just such an explosive runner. And they put Javonte Williams in there when they get down into the red zone and like scoring opportunities, hence why Javonte Williams has more touchdowns than Michael Carter. But I do expect Michael Carter to get more of the load and definitely could see him getting another 1,000 yards this year. But the top 2 running backs in the ACC, in my opinion, are far and away better than the other 2. Number 2, I covered him yesterday in my top 10 in the nation, but number 2 is Javian Hawkins of Louisville. Again, I'll go over his stats really quickly. 264 rushing attempts with 1,525 rushing yards, 9 rushing touchdowns, tack on 4 receptions for 58 receiving yards with those numbers as well. Like I said yesterday, Javian Hawkins is a guy who really impresses me, is a great shifty runner, and a guy who, again, I could expect another 1,500 yards from Javian Hawkins this year. He's definitely a big part of their offense. Again, like I said yesterday, doesn't catch the ball as much because Malik Cunningham has Tutu Atwell out there. But Javian Hawkins definitely is their number 1 guy for Louisville at the running back position. And he is an absolute fantastic running back. If you remember yesterday, I had him at number 9 in the entire nation. He is an absolutely insane guy. I just can't wait to watch how he only improves on his game in 2020. But I think you all know this was coming. He is far and away, in my opinion, the best running back in the ACC, and he is my number 1 running back in the entire nation. It is Travis Etienne of Clemson. I already covered Lynn J. Dixon. Now we're going to cover the top running back at Clemson University, and that is Travis Etienne by a long shot. 207 rushing attempts last year with 1,614 rushing yards, 19 rushing touchdowns. That's a lot of production from your running back. 37 receptions with 432 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns to tackle along those as well. So he can really do it all. A total of over 2,000 yards last year for Travis Etienne, both on the rushing game and the receiving game. He is just an absolutely great runner, has a lot of speed, very shifty, can find the holes. Travis Etienne forego the NFL draft to come back for his senior year, and definitely I think is going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft this year. He's coming back this year to only get better, and I just think that's what's going to happen. He's only going to get better, and I think they're going to rely on him a little bit more than what they would have if Justin Ross have stayed healthy. But, of course, Justin Ross went down with a neck injury, so Travis Etienne is going, I think, to be relied on just a little bit more than he would, but Clemson still got some great wide receivers out there, and Travis Etienne is far and away my top running back in the ACC. All right, that's going to do it for my top 10 running backs in the ACC for the 2020 college football season. If you guys enjoyed this, please leave a like. Also consider subscribing if you are brand new to the channel or you just enjoy my content. And if you haven't done so already, please do leave a comment down below. I would love to hear your thoughts on the running backs that are going to be playing in the ACC this year. And let me know if I missed one. But as always, until next time, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. I'll see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.